Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 316. I am so excited to have Dr. J. Davidson back on the show. He was in an epic episode with us, episode 210. We talked all about how to detox parasites healthfully, the safest way to clean our body of parasites, and also really interesting how in Lyme disease, people often have co-infections, and these co-infections also often happen to have some parasites involved. So that was a really interesting episode. I highly recommend you go back and listen to episode 210. Dr. Davidson also shares his bio, which is really interesting. So you want to go back and hear those stories. Well, I love your cleanse. My husband and I did it for about 90 days, and we absolutely got rid of all the crazy parasites in our bodies, and we had some really interesting experiences. And I just think it's such a cool thing to do annually. Just do once a year and clean out the body of all the potential bugs that we may have picked up. After interviewing you, I started to do a bit more research into and just learning more about parasites and realizing that it's really easy to catch one. Just something as simple as going barefoot. I was at the ocean recently this year, and I had a cut on my foot, and I ended up getting a big infection in my leg. Luckily resolved it very quickly, but it just made me think, how common is it to have a cut that you don't know you have on your foot and then do something like walk barefoot in the grass and pick up a parasite? And it's something that we do if we have cats or we have dogs or we've been exposed to someone else's cat or dog. We could have picked up a parasite. And so to use your natural and safe method to clean the body is so wonderful. Since I had you on the show, you've come up with a few more supplements that are revolutionary. So I thought it'd be really cool to have you on the show to teach us the entire protocol that you've created and how to use it. So welcome back to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. It's like the encore.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so when we had you on the show, you shared about the Mimosa pudica, the Formula 1, and then you had 2 carbon supplements that kind of get absorbed into the body and mop up heavy metals and toxins left behind from dead and dying parasites. And I've got to tell a quick story about that. So we bought all 4 of those supplements, and then later I bought your intestinal mover because I really did discover that when doing a parasite cleanse, my body needed that extra support, and I thought it was a very nice, very gentle supplement. I really like it because normally, laxative supplements are pretty harsh, and yours is very, very gentle. So I really enjoyed it. I just want to put it out there that I liked it, and I definitely recommend it. So I tried the protocol, and I was on it. I was doing the Mimosa pudica, and then I do the Formula 1, and then I do the carbon supplements later in the day. Keep the carbon supplements separate from the cleanse supplements. Well, one day I was a few weeks into the protocol. I wasn't feeling anything. I didn't feel any different. So I thought maybe I don't have parasites. Maybe, nothing's happening. Nothing's better than feeling bad, but I didn't feel anything. Well, I got really busy one day, and I was taking my Mimosa pudica and the Formula 1, the stuff that kills the parasites, but I forgot to take the carbon supplements. I just completely spaced. I was so busy that day, and I forgot 2 doses of the carbon supplements. Well, that night I woke up with a fever, a headache. My body felt like I was in a full-blown flu, and for a few hours I lay there in agony going, how did I catch the flu? And this is so weird that it just hit me all of a sudden. Like, it just came out of nowhere. And then I realized what I kind of thought back on my day and realized that I'm in the middle of doing a parasite cleanse, and I forgot to take the supplements that stop you from feeling bad. And I went, oh my gosh, could this be it? So I went and I took the carbon supplements. I ate some chlorella. I took a hot Epsom salt bath. I drank some more water. And in less than an hour, my symptoms of like really bad headache and fever and chills and feeling like I basically had the flu completely came down. And so I took an extra dose of the carbon supplements, but that's when I realized the cleanse is working and those carbon supplements are really working. And when I forgot to take them, I started feeling the effects of the cleanse. So I just want to say kudos to you. You've done a great job at creating a cleanse that when you do it well, you have minimal side effects.
Yes, well, that is the thing, right, Ashley, is, we hear about, oh, there could be critters inside and there's toxins inside, and we want to jump right to let's detox and let's kill as much as, these critters as we can. But the reason that we have phase one, really to focus on drainage and to prepare the body is to minimize the symptomatology as you move forward. And some people, honestly, from a mindset, they need to feel some symptoms to know that it's working. Of course, we already know that, and that's why we really designed the protocol guide in a specific manner.
Yeah. So as a listener, if you want a great detox and parasite cleanse that is also gentle enough and supports the drainage and supports the body in eliminating the toxins, so you really don't feel like you're going through a horrible parasite cleanse experience. If you want a really nice, gentle experience, then Dr. J. Davidson stuff. Totally recommend it. The link to your protocol, all your protocols are going to be in the show notes of the podcast. And we also have a direct link, learntruehealth.com/cleanse. Now, since we had you on the show, you have come out with, like you just mentioned, the phase one. You have come out with more supplements, and you've also changed the name of a few of your supplements. I'd really love for you to go through and explain what happened that had you want to create these supplements, or what informed you that made you realize we need to create these additional supplements to support people?
Yeah. So as we get more people to really follow this, we're realizing that, there are some added things that we needed in here, and primarily the drainage support is what really changes everything. So when we're looking at drainage and how do we prepare the body, we want to look at what are all the drainage pathways, and it's really the base of the funnel. And if you think about a funnel, like the most narrow portion of a funnel, everything above, inside the funnel relies off that narrow portion to get through. Well, that first portion is the colon. It is the intestinal tract. So if you are not going number two, if you are not pooping, and you might be asking, well, how often? Well, one time a day, that's okay, right? For just maybe just typical, if you're just doing well with health, like one to two is probably good. But honestly, I like to push more to that 2 to 3 bowel movements a day in order to really heal the body. Because when you start moving into supporting the immune system and going after pathogens, when you start moving into detoxifying and really pulling the chemicals out, now it's a lot easier for those pathways to get clogged up. Well, as soon as those pathways get clogged up, then that's when symptoms, happen. So most people, the drainage is not exactly like a super attractive thing and really exciting, because typically it's like, well, what type of symptoms should we actually notice from it? Honestly, usually not much, because you're just supporting the natural pathways that should move things along. So it doesn't get a lot of attention. It's not like the sexy Hollywood, like, oh, awesome. That's usually phase 2 and 3 where everybody gets super psyched, which is why we want to jump to it. But phase 1, we're looking at supporting the intestinal tract with intestinal mover. We're looking at supporting the liver, bile duct, and kidneys. And that's really the second part up in the funnel, because if the colon's backed up, it backs everything up. If the liver bile duct is backed up, then it backs up what's above that. And what's above that is the lymphatic system. And then we're looking at organs and tissues. And one of those big organs, and one of the most important ones, is the brain. So if we're having headaches, brain fog, can't think clearly, cognitive type issues, can't sleep, just like pressure, we know that usually there's something backed up in the chain of drainage, whether it's the colon, the liver bile duct, the lymphatic system, or all the above, in order for it to really clog up. So the order is the base of the funnel is the colon. The next tier up is the liver bile duct with kidneys. The kidneys are a little interchangeable. The kidneys will hydrate the colon, but the kidneys are primarily in that liver bile duct category in relationship. And then the next piece up from the funnel is the lymphatic system. And then the next part up from there is really like the organs and tissues, where we could throw brain, or you could say brain drainage, like the glymphatic system, which is just a fancy way to say a cell in the brain, glial, and the lymphatic together, glymphatic system. So when we look at drainage, we want to start supporting the funnel at the base first. We want to make sure the colon's moving. Then we want to move up to the liver bile duct. The liver bile duct is one of the most important areas I see clinically in what actually holds people back from getting well. So the more attention we give to liver bile duct, the better off we're going to be. And we're in development, really trying to target some more support in that area as well. That's more on the research side. I'm not sure what we'll have come out and when exactly, but kind of behind the scenes, just because we know how important that area is. And then the other product in phase 1 is BioActive Carbon Foundation, really there to support quite a bit of things. There's the bioactive carbons always get their attention for binding, but more importantly, the bioactive carbons actually help to give carbon and hydrogen to the body and oxygen. So if you look at how the body is made, 96% is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. We're looking at under 4% is minerals. And we know how important minerals are, and they're extremely important, but the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are really the base. And that bioactive carbon is actually like giving that base bone of our body support. And then what's happening is it's also doing other things like binding on and helping to support really the detox pathways.
Now, you put a ton of research into your specific carbon supplements. Why can't I just go out and eat some burnt, husk of a coconut? I know I've seen some, just like I've seen other, you go to the Whole Foods or whatever, and you get some kind of carbon supplement that's just like some burnt husk of something. Why can't I just take that? What's different about your 3 different carbon supplements?
It's kind of funny because I've told our team, like, hey, I want a T-shirt that says "My scientist is smarter than yours," because I really believe that's what it comes down to. Honestly, like when you look at the ingredients, you're like extracts of fulvic acid and humic acid. Like, okay, why don't I just go get fulvic acid and humic acid? Or you'll look at supplements on the market now and they have fulvates in them, and it's like, well, is that the exact same thing? And it's like, no, it's not. It's actually lost quite a bit of energy in there. And there's a ton of research. And there's a lot of possibility with fulvic acid. So our scientist, he's been in this world for over 30 years, and he's really the guy that's created this stuff or figured this out. So nobody else has him. So that's really what I guess makes us unique. It's kind of strange to say that, but he has said multiple times, if you take the top 20 scientists in the fulvic acid world and you give them the fulvic acid molecule for the next 20 years to spend time with all the 20 scientists together, we're still not going to understand all the possibilities of this molecule. And I feel like that kind of shows the bigness of, well, like, whoa, this is quite mind-boggling, because the actual fulvic acid molecule has 24 tetratrillion different binding positions, or 24 tetratrillion different like combinations. And what would that mean is if you walked up to your car and you're like, gosh, I forgot my key. Oh, I locked it inside. And you call a locksmith. Well, if that locksmith comes with a chain of 10 keys and starts trying them, you're like, well, good luck, unless he's got, like a lock picking thing. But if somebody comes by and they have 24 tetratrillion different sets of keys, most likely they're going to be able to open that lock, because there's just that many more possibilities. And that's really what this molecule is. And so we take a very advanced look at it. And I would say it's not me. I'm not the scientist. I more look at the clinical aspects and how do we utilize this and where does this fit into the protocol, and how does this benefit more from a clinical standpoint, not necessarily in the research lab like our researcher Jeff, but he really looks at a lot of different things. He looks at the energetics, he looks at the pH, he's looking at multiple things, and he's actually said there's a few things that he's never told anybody that he actually looks at. So it's very proprietary from an intellectual standpoint. But these molecules are just very different. And so the quick gist is, if you go out and buy an activated charcoal or like an activated carbon charcoal type supplement, it could come from a lot of different sources. And kind of the new upbeat thing is, let's get it from coconuts instead of petroleum or these other different types of sources. Well, the thing is activated charcoal is a long chain carbon. And so there's different chains of carbon. There's different lengths of it. And with the bioactive carbons, we have small, medium, and long. The long sit inside the GI tract. So it's great at binding things inside the GI, especially the bile duct system and the bile. So your liver, the reason I love the liver so much is it processes toxins, phase 1 and phase 2 detox. Well, phase 1 and phase 2 detox is how it processes the chemicals. Then there's something called phase 3 detox, which is really should be coined like drainage. Like, what does the liver do now with these byproducts of these chemicals? Like, how does it get rid of them in the body? And the healthy way and the majority is that these byproducts then get dumped into the bile. Well, the bile then holds on to toxins. Pathogens live in there as well, and it causes stagnation. It causes things to get thick and sludgy, and it affects our GI. And so we're working on, let's get the bile duct moving. Let's get the liver opened up and flowing so that the body can be healthy. And you would say, well, that's all good and everything, but the bile is really expensive energy-wise for the body to make ATP. So it'll actually recycle the bile. When it recycles the bile, upper 90% of the time, when it recycles the bile, it will bring along that byproduct of the chemical or toxin with it. So you're basically re-intoxifying or recirculating or kind of bringing that back into the body. And so activated charcoal has been known to really help bind on to the bile. It's a long chain carbon. It is spent, and I'll talk about what that means too. But essentially what it does is it binds onto the bile so that the body eliminates it through the feces and you don't reabsorb it along with the chemicals that come along with it. So what we're looking at with the bioactive carbons is that they're actually long chain, medium, and short. The difference is they're not spent. So spent carbon is basically like you have a bus that's 3/4 of the way full with people on it, and you have some empty seats, and it goes into the body, and it can grab onto some more, it can fill up the rest of the seats, but it's not an empty bus. Well, the bioactive carbons, we actually look at basically making it unspent, or as I like to simplify it, basically means it's a bus going into the body in different size buses, but all the seats are empty. So it's got more binding capacity to it. Now, long chain, so when you look at a bioactive carbon, it's got a third medium chain, a third small, and a third long. So a third small, third medium, a third long. So the long sits in the GI. The medium and small, though, are what actually gets into the body. And that's really where the difference is made, is when we can get into the cells and get into the brain and actually get to work. And these molecules have enough energy. If you hold them under a microscope, you can actually see that they're like vibrating. They're like energetic. They're like electric. And what that means is they not only have enough energy to get into the cell, but they have enough energy to get out. So these molecules are really unique, these bioactive carbons, but it's really one of our, our unique things about our products. Because if you look at like the Formula 1, which is for immune support, if you look at intestinal mover, you'll see extracts of fulvic acid, humic acid in there. And you're like, oh, is that the bioactive carbons? Yes, but they're actually mixed with the herbs. And in that case, instead of doing the whole thing that the normal bioactive carbons do, they're actually there as like traffic cops. They're there to protect the herbs, and they're also there to help actually direct the herbs to where they need to go so they become more effective. So we utilize bioactive carbons in many instances and can actually modify the molecule based on what the needs are. So like bioactive carbon iodine, which is a newer product of ours, that one's specifically programmed to actually bind on to the bad halogens like chlorine, fluoride, bromide, or bromine, and then actually grab onto those halogens that typically displace iodine. And now we actually have empty receptors or empty sites for that iodine to actually get onto, because that's a big reaction that people will have with iodine is they'll take iodine, but it's got nowhere to go because all these other halogens are taking over or really have bound on to where they need to be.
Wow. And when people hear iodine, they think of the thyroid, but there's iodine receptors in other parts of the body?
Yeah. Every cell needs iodine. Like breast tissue, really important for iodine. Thyroid, of course, the skin. But yeah, iodine is just a necessary nutrient. So for those that say like, well, I'm allergic to iodine, I think it's impossible to be allergic because it's a necessary nutrient for life.
What are they allergic to then?
Most likely they're having a reaction. So there's different types of iodine. So for instance, ours is a plant-derived iodine. So it's already like basically the body's ready to absorb it. Other forms though aren't always such. So it can be a little more difficult for the body to break down or really to absorb, or it can stir things up more so. Our iodine actually is processed in a plant where the DEA oversees it as well. So it's very clean, and then it's got the bioactive carbons in it. And I think the two reasons why ours we found less reactions is that the bioactive carbons, like I said, bind the halogens, but then also the quality. And you always want to look for an iodine and an iodide. That's the Lugel's ratio. Iodide's the salt form of iodine. Different organs and different tissues need either iodine or iodide, so you want to find something of both. But those people that have autoimmune thyroids, or they have, if you run a thyroid panel and you see TPO or TGs and they're really high or they're really off the charts, typically what will happen is if you take a lot of iodine, you can cause what they call like a thyroid storm, an autoimmune storm. Mm-hmm. And so the iodine will actually turn the thyroid on. It's needed, I believe, to heal the thyroid. However, if you have a really strong autoimmunity, you want to balance the minerals out. Selenium is a really important mineral, but I'm a really big fan of kind of the broad spectrum of minerals because there's so many different ones out there, and you want to get them in the right ratio, the right balance. But you want to start, if you're autoimmune thyroid, with really working on the minerals and working on the mitochondrial health for a month or two. And then when you add the iodine in, just start slow and low. And that way you can actually prevent from having kind of one of those thyroid storms or autoimmune reaction.
How would we work on preparing our body? So let's say we want to take your bioactive carbon iodine supplement, because it sounds amazing, because I love that you address the fact that these heavy metals will bind to the iodine receptors and kind of gum up the works. So it's sort of like if you had a car that's dirty, you're not going to put paint over it. It's like the paint job's going to come off. You have to first clean the car, take off that layer of paint, and then put a new layer of paint on. If you want to take an iodine supplement because you know the benefits of iodine, you might be iodine deficient. If all the iodine receptors are gummed up, there's just no way, no matter how much iodine you're taking, it's not being 100% effective. And so your supplement is binding to all the toxins and cleaning up the body's receptors so that the iodine can get in there. That's awesome. But you mentioned that we should do some kind of preparation beforehand. Is that your phase 1 supplements?
Essentially, no. So when you look at the protocol guide, and you can, the link in the show notes here of the Learn True podcast, with Ashley James here. But when you look at the protocol guide, you'll see phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 1 is preparation, really opening up drainage pathway. Phase 2 is where we're supporting the immune system. That's where it gets all the attention, because that's times you can see critters come out of you, like in your stool and things. And then phase 3 is detoxification, more in the heavy metal side of things, and also pesticides. And so all those are needed. But what we found, Dr. Todd Watts and I were the co-founders of Microbe Formulas. So of course we have bias in this. But what we've been finding is that those that are having even a tough time opening up the drainage, they're in a category where they need more cellular support. They need more cellular energy, looking at the mitochondria. The mitochondria has been talked about a lot, but it's rare to actually find stuff that really works to open that up. So when you look at the mitochondria, they're what produce ATP in the cells. And when those ATP, or when the mitochondria get blown out, we don't get the cellular energy. And that's when you start taking stuff and you don't feel good. Or you start detoxing, you start killing stuff, and you're like, gosh, I don't even have any energy. I feel like my body is, just on kind of whim's end, or just like I'm whipped. That's when you just don't have cellular energy. So if you were to kind of think about with one hand up higher and one hand lower, the higher hand, we could say, okay, there's a lot of chronic toxicity, there's a lot of chronic infection. Well, the goal is we want to bring that down. But the other hand that's low is cellular energy. Until we get the cellular energy up above where the chronic infection and the chronic toxicity is, we're not going to reestablish that. So as soon as you stop killing, or as soon as you stop detoxing, it's going to start creeping back up, because there's not enough cellular energy actually to keep you where you're at. And that's ultimately the biggest goal, Ashley, is we want people to not only detox and clear out chronic infection, but want to reestablish the normal cellular energy, so that you don't have to be taking stuff forever, that you can, work on clearing pathogens out, you can work on clearing the toxins out, lift the cell energy up, and the mitochondrial energy up. And what will happen is that'll actually keep you in a good place where you're less likely to ever revert. But what happens if you revert, that means that we're looking at environment, that either there's too many exposures, there's too many things that could be affecting or really, accumulating back where the body can't keep up. But often what we see is truly the mitochondria. So we could say that there's a phase 0 to this, or what we could call like the energy booster pack, right? Like if you just need a little life in your cells, or you need a little life or energy in your life, like your adrenals are shot, you're not sleeping, then you're a perfect candidate for what we call like this phase 0. And we don't even have anything on our website yet really regarding this. So this is pretty cutting edge. So I think it's a great platform to kind of explain it here on this podcast. But we have like this booster pack idea for energy, or really this phase 0. And what would be included in that is the iodine, because iodine will really lift up that cellular energy. So the bioactive carbon iodine. We've got the bioactive carbon minerals, and that's 70 plus minerals with about a dozen different amino acids. And those are very absorbable, very great. So even people with like just destroyed guts that they're not absorbing nutrients, that stuff rocks and just is so great. So we've got the minerals, the bioactive carbon minerals, we've got the bioactive carbon iodine, we've got the biomolecular oxygen. And then the fourth thing we could throw in there would be the bioactive carbon biotox. So really those 4 things we would consider kind of that phase 0, or the pre-drainage phase, for those people that are like, gosh, I think I'm going to react to everything. Then we have to start lifting cellular energy up. We have to focus with the mitochondria.
Okay, this is really cool. Okay, so phase 0, bioactive carbon minerals. You said that that's over 70 minerals plus some of the medium, long, and short chain carbons.
Well, it's got amino acids actually in it as well.
Okay, so and amino acids?
Yep.
So it's minerals, amino acids, and the carbon that gets into the colon and helps to bind to the toxins, and also gets into the blood and helps get into the cells and grab the toxins and get them out of our body.
No, these minerals are more for like replenishing your minerals and helping to balance them out. So we attach the minerals to a fulvic acid molecule. That's what kind of makes it more absorbable and things, but it's not the same as like the bioactive carbon, the metchem, the biotox, or the foundation. Those 3 are kind of in a separate category, more of the binders, if you will.
Got it. So bioactive carbon minerals has fulvic acid to help get the minerals absorbed into your body.
Yeah, it's really the base that we attach the minerals to. So there's obviously I'm biased with this, but I think the best broad spectrum mineral right now is the bioactive carbon minerals. Very tolerable, absorb really well, but it just helps to balance things out, because the fulvic acid molecule will go from cell to cell to cell and say, okay, you've got too much iron in this cell, and balance that out. It'll go to another cell and say, oh, you've got not enough copper. Here's some copper. So it's got some intelligence to it, rather than just kind of dumping like some minerals in, and especially like the inorganic ones that aren't really usable by the body. But these are usable, they're plant derived, and then they also really get inside the cell too.
Very cool. And so that is the first one you would recommend for phase 0. The next one would be the bioactive carbon iodine. Tell me about the bioactive molecular oxygen.
Yeah, so the biomolecular oxygen is basically stabilized oxygen. It sounds rather strange. It's something to definitely try out. I've been using it now for quite a while when I do coffee enemas. So I'll do a coffee enema usually like once a week. It's like the energy, life. Just like I'm ready to rock and roll for the day. And what I add to the coffee enemas, and my latest, basically, if you want to say concoction, is I make the coffee enema. I put a tablespoon of the molasses in there that helps you kind of hold it in easier. And then I add the bioactive carbon minerals, and then I add the biomolecular oxygen. Now, I would say it's, work up to like 10 drops of each. I go a little bit beyond that because we're always testing and seeing kind of where you're at. But when you add that oxygen too, you can take oxygen's kind of the Swiss Army knife of Microbe Formulas. So you can put it on your skin topically. You can the main way is actually ingesting it. So put in a little bit of water and drink it down. 10 drops, usually 2 to 3 times a day is kind of the standard dosing. And then you could also put it in coffee enema solution. You can nebulize it if you have lung issues, or if you have a nebulizer with like a nasal attachment and you have sinus issues, you can actually put a drop of that in there with some like distilled water as well. So it's got many uses to it, and it's a really phenomenal product. Oxygenation basically is needed for pretty much most processes. It's one of the last electron acceptor donors of the ATP process, so it's important in the mitochondria as well, which is why we throw it in there. So
Now, people would think that oxygen is a gas and not drops. Can you explain how it's a liquid?
yeah, so it's we've been able to stabilize the oxygen inside the fulvic acid or extracts of the fulvic acid molecule, so that it's not only delivered in the body, but it's sustained. So a little difference of like ozone, where it's kind of like fast acting in the body. The biomolecular oxygen is more of sustained. So you can actually measure like your oxygen saturation and see when that increases, it actually stays there for quite a while. So if you have like an oxygen, like a pulsometer or an oxygen monitor, you can see like your SpO2, your saturation of oxygen. If that starts getting lower, of course, taking like biomolecular oxygen will increase that, and it'll actually keep it there for a while. Another thing you can look at within that is it's PI percentage. I'm blanking here. Perfusion index. You can look at the perfusion index as well. That's a better marker to kind of look at the overall health. A lot of times people will have great SpO2, but it's a perfusion index, and that's really the health of your arteries and the ability for the blood essentially to penetrate through the tissues and really get absorbed. So perfusion index is a great thing to monitor. You can get one on Amazon for $30, one of those monitors. But the biomolecular oxygen is an awesome product. I always recommend people to test it out and try it out. It definitely seems a little strange because it's like I don't know of any other, oxygen stabilized, right? Because we breathe it, but this is actually getting inside the cells and inside the tissue to help oxygenation. Because what will happen with toxins and pathogens, Ashley, is when there is toxins and pathogens, it'll create inflammation, and essentially the cell will not be able to get nutrients in, not be able to get toxins out, and essentially we get kind of sick cells. And so stagnation happens, lower oxygen. Pathogens oftentimes love lowered oxygen levels, especially like mold. So somebody that's struggling with mold, the biomolecular oxygen is amazing, essentially helping to oxygenate and bring back the tissues back into a healthier environment. And the healthier the environment is, the less likely you are to get some type of, pathogen, let alone get some type of infection lingering that you're creating an environment that they can't really survive in.
Very interesting. I'm imagining, have you had athletes try this, and have they noticed longer endurance?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we've had in the testing, our scientist has had older gentleman on oxygen in his 80s and taking it, and he was able to go without his oxygen machine for 10 or 11 hours because of the saturation. So that's just kind of like some things as we've tested. So it's not like documented in a case study or journal or anything like that, but just as we've been developing and working with it, just some things that we've seen. But absolutely, yeah, in the athlete world, I mean, the thing is, if a protocol will help those that are chronically ill, a protocol will also take your health to a whole new level, even if you're not in the quote unquote chronic illness side. I mean, athletes a lot of times are always looking for just a little bit of an edge. Well, unless something's broke, usually people aren't going after toxins or going after different pathogens until like it's a crisis. And that's kind of the gift of having a chronic illness or a crisis, is it forces us to get into an area that maybe we wouldn't have been down before. And as we get into this, then we start raising our body's health up, so we get even healthier than we were before the crisis even hit.
I'm imagining the Silicon Valley is just waiting to find your biomolecular oxygen supplement, because they're always looking for the cutting edge, and and they're always sitting at desks not moving their bodies, so they really need to increase their cellular oxygen. I think that's really cool. You just to switch directions for a minute, we're going to get back to phase 0. You mentioned coffee enema. I want to point out that those who are interested in trying one, it's not just your standard Starbucks brew. Can you maybe explain a little bit about why someone would want to do a coffee enema and just the precautions around it? Like, there's a specific type of coffee used, not drinking coffee, right?
Yeah, so you always want to make sure to get organic, non-pesticide sprayed. And I mean that goes for even when you drink coffee, because what's happening when you grind a bean up and you steep it is any chemical that's in the bean is going to come out. Well, it's going to come out in liquid if you drink that, or you put it up into the colon via the other direction, you're going to be absorbing that. And so we want to make sure really to focus with chemical-free coffee. But when you're looking at coffee enema, light or air roasted coffee is best. So it's kind of like not green coffee, but it's not, medium or dark roast. And the reason we go for after the light roasted or air roasted is it's got more things that we want health-wise. It's got colorectics and some other things in the coffee that the liver will really benefit from to help increase detoxification, reducing glutathione, S-transferase, which is an enzyme for glutathione. It helps to actually increase bile production of the liver. It helps to actually increase the purging of the bile. So what that means is you're making more bile, and now you're actually creating more movement in the bile duct system. And we know that stagnation, whether it's exercise, whether it's the drainage pathways, really favors sickness. So the more that we can create motion, motion is life. That's why they always say, like, keep moving your brain, right? Or keep challenging your brain, keep moving your body. Well, the same thing with the drainage pathways, that the more we can keep the liver bile duct moving, which coffee enemas will do that, the better off health-wise we'll be.
Absolutely. I'm going to link in the show notes the enema bucket that I recommend after trying many ones. I've done coffee enemas on and off for years. And I used to, when I first started, I can't believe this, I used to just use the same Starbucks coffee at the same strength. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. No, you don't have to make a strong coffee. It's like one, tablespoon of your blonde, organic, very specific enema coffee in like 4 cups of water. So it's not very strong, and it's definitely not the same stuff we drink. But there's this one stainless steel enema bucket that I found on Amazon that I really like, and I noticed actually in your Facebook group. I got to do a plug. You've got a fantastic Facebook group. I really recommend if anyone wants to buy Dr. J's supplements and try them, they should join the Facebook group as well. There's so much amazing information in there. Can you just share, what's the name of your Facebook group?
Yeah, they can just go to parasitegroup.com, and that'll take you to our Facebook group. So great. Parasitegroup.com.
Absolutely. Join that Facebook group. There's lots of great information about these protocols. And also what I love are the testimonials. Like, people are amazing at sharing their experiences and answering questions and, talking about dosing and stuff like that. So, and the coffee enema often is a common discussion in that group. You mentioned molasses. Very interesting. I've never heard of putting molasses in a coffee enema. I would think that the sugar would not be good because of yeast, potential for yeast growth. But could you explain why you'd put molasses in a coffee enema, and how much do you put in an enema?
Yeah, so I'm a little unconventional in the coffee enema side. So, I mean, generally, I usually do a tablespoon of, so I'm a little different in what you're saying too. I usually do a tablespoon of ground coffee per cup of water.
Okay.
So if you do a 4-cup solution, I usually do four tablespoons. That's what like to work up to. So if somebody's like sensitive or like, I'm not sure I'm going to respond, then either do less liquid, where you're doing like 2 tablespoons for 2 cups, or just do like 1 or 2 tablespoons per 4 cups. So you kind of water it down and make sure, you're not over pushing it. Mm-hmm. What'll happen is those people that say, well, I react to caffeine, so I can't do a coffee enema. Really not true. So the coffee is processed different via the colon than it is ingesting it. So if somebody actually reacts to a coffee enema, you usually want to look at the protocol, and you also want to look at the fact that most likely the liver bile duct is so clogged up and backed up that you're just trying to over push it, that you gotta be a little gentler on it. So you gotta water, like I said, water the coffee down or not make it so strong. And as you kind of get that flowing, then you can, start to increase it. But essentially when you're doing a coffee enema, you put a tube in your rectum about 6 inches in, and we've all heard of the hemorrhoids. Well, there's hemorrhoidal veins that connect to a vein called the hepatic portal vein just know that this vein basically goes right to the liver. So when you put coffee in your rectum about 6 inches, it goes right to the liver, and that's why it's processed differently. And that's where all kind of the action that happens. So if you just want to do a coffee enema, I mean, you literally just, yeah, you can get a stainless steel bucket, you can get a silicone bag, you need, you need the tube, kit stuff, a little lubricant for the end of the tube, like coconut oil, and the coffee, right? So air roasted or lightly roasted, and organic obviously is like a must. And then if you want to kind of take it to the next level, that's when you can start adding things to it. I mean, you can add essential oils like tangerine essential oil because it'll help to purge the liver bile duct a little bit more. You can add in the molasses. The reason I add the molasses in is actually easier to hold it in. So for somebody that's done a coffee and I'm like, oh my gosh, after like a minute, it's like coming out of me. I can't even hold it in. Then you want to look at a couple things. Either you're putting the tube in too far, you're putting the liquid in too fast, or you're putting too much liquid in at once. Those three, any combination. And then you also want to look at the fact that you might need to add a little bit of molasses. And I'm not sure what molasses generally is thicker in nature. So if that's part of it, what lets you hold it, I think it has to do with some of the potassium that's in the molasses for a reason. But for whatever it's worth, it seems to work really well to help hold it. And I put it in because I like to push the envelope. So when I'm putting like 16 drops of the minerals in, the bioactive carbon minerals, I'm putting 30 drops actually of the biomolecular oxygen, which I'm not recommending. I'm just saying that's kind of like the mixture that I'm at right now. And it is amazing when you do a coffee enema, like how much energy, the clarity that happens from it. So I guess if we're talking kind of basic enema, like just start just with the coffee enema solution, just get the supplies. And then if you want to go to the next level, I've got some more, I guess, information, or I've actually got a whole coffee enema course really on that. I think it's ultimatecoffeeenema.com. It's like $99 or $97 or something to really go in depth on how to, take the coffee enemas to the next level.
Oh, very cool. And how long should they hold the enema for?
15 minutes, yeah, is the goal. So I like to have people steep the coffee for 20 minutes, or you can boil it on the stove for 20 minutes, or simmer it on the stove for 20 minutes. But when you actually put the coffee enema solution in, so I'll make 4 cups. I'll put 2 cups in, hold it for 15 minutes, sit on the toilet, gently just purge it out. I'll sit there for 10 minutes, just make sure I get like a lot of it out or get it all out. Then I'll lay back down and then do the second 2 of 4 cups that are left, and then hold it in for 15 minutes. So when you hold coffee in, it basically speeds up the blood flow. So the blood usually goes through the liver every 6 minutes. Like the entire body's worth of blood will be filtered through basically go through the liver, be filtered every 6 minutes. When you do a coffee enema, that shrinks to 3 minutes. So what's happening is there's a lot of cleansing that's happening. So the longer that you can hold that in there, the better. But I feel like 15 minutes is like a great number to shoot for.
And so the body, through those veins, the body's absorbing the minerals and absorbing the caffeine, which is stimulating the liver to produce more glutathione and do all the wonderful things you'd mentioned. But you're actually able to absorb the minerals. So the minerals are getting like injected straight into the liver. This would be great, especially for people who have celiac, or they know they have absorption issues, because you're bypassing that need to absorb through the small intestines to get to the liver.
Yes. Yeah. Really, I mean, the oxygen, the biomolecular oxygen, and the bioactive carbon minerals, they're in a liquid. So the oxygen, like as soon as it's like in the body, it's like gone and it's absorbed. The minerals are not quite as quick as the oxygen, but they get absorbed pretty quickly. But yeah, it is. So for those worried about it disrupting the microbiome, most of the microbiome is in the first 2/3 of the large intestine or the colon. And really the coffee enema, you're putting the solution just in the lower third. So you're actually not really getting the solution. You're not putting it way up into the intestinal tract. It's designed to be the lower GI, which then goes directly to the liver to then impact the liver. And then of course that bile will get purged out and all that stuff. And that'll get into the small intestine and start, weaving its way down, of course. But it's not so much a disruptor of the microbiome as maybe some people think it might be.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, because if it's staying in the rectum, it's not getting into the areas where the microbiome is. mainly, like you said. But those who have absorption issues would be happy to know they can do it this way. Are there other supplements that are easily absorbed through the rectum that you recommend trying?
Um, not too much. I mean, there's some various essential oil enemas, like in my at-home program that I'll recommend, kind of in the people that have a lot of sludgy biofilm and stuff. But other than that, it's pretty much coffee enema. Experimented and tested a lot of stuff out, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And it is, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When you put that much oxygen, that many minerals in it, it's not like super easy to hold. But wow, is it like a you know, energy and clarity afterwards. So, but that's also why I add the molasses to it.
I think the key is to start slow, like you said. Start like this is not something to go gung ho with. This is something to. It's better to start with a weaker solution and work your way up. We have a spare bathroom that's big enough, and I grab a bunch of couch pillows and then put towels over them, so I'm able to lie down right beside the toilet, right in the bathroom, very comfortably. And because you're lying there, like you said, 15 minutes at a time, you really don't want to lie on a cold bathroom floor. And I don't recommend, if you're just starting with enemas, to have to walk to your bed to lie down or walk to the couch if you have an accident. So I like to be as close to the shower or the bath or the toilet as
The
possible.
toilet.
Right, the
Yep.
toilet. But it really is much easier than it sounds. I think definitely for those who are interested in doing this, especially those who know they have a sluggish liver and want to purge the liver and also I just love the fact that it helps the body produce more glutathione. That's so important. But like you said, this is sort of phase 0. This is preparing the body and preparing the body for drainage in order to get to the point where we can move through your parasite detox and parasite cleanse. Your last supplement you'd say is in phase 0 would be the BioActive Carbon Biotox. What is that?
The biotox is really for ammonia, mold, fungus, candida, but it really helps to upregulate oxygenation. So it's just a really good supportive formula for the cellular energy. So biotox, like the bioactive carbon biotox and the bioactive carbon foundation, you could take those before and after a coffee enema to kind of add a catcher's mitt into the bile. But the biotox, not only is it in phase 2, but it can also be in that phase 0 or the energy booster pack, because it just really helps the mitochondria a lot.
Excellent. And if someone's worried that they might have a sluggish bile, or they might have gallstones, what is this safe to do?
You mean a coffee enema
Yeah,
or the protocol?
coffee enema and the protocol.
Yeah, so with the bile stones, you always have to ask, why are those being formed? So it's usually a toxin that the body is encapsulating, or it's typically a pathogen. And so if we don't start clearing the bile and gallbladder out, what'll happen is oftentimes you'll get more stones and you'll get bigger ones, and then that's when it can be kind of lead into possibly like a crisis where you have to have your gallbladder out. Well, if you've had your gallbladder out, that's a red flag that you've had liver bile duct issues for years. But just getting the gallbladder out doesn't mean that it's solved anything. It actually puts you at a disadvantage because now you don't have that gallbladder sac. So anything to support the liver bile duct is going to be important for everybody on the spectrum, whether they're like think that they're fine and healthy to somebody that they know like, oh my gosh, I've got stones and things like that. It's like, well, you really want to work on creating movement to clear those out. And of course, the fear is, what if the stone gets stuck? It's like, well, I mean, that's always a possibility. But I've over the years recommended a liver gallbladder flush. It's a little bit more abrupt in those circumstances, where you're drinking the Epsom salt, you do the olive oil and grapefruit juice, and then you drink some more Epsom salt in the morning. And multiple people that were about to get their gallbladder out, I'm like, do this cleanse. And they're like, well, what if it gets stuck? I'm like, you're going to get your gallbladder out anyways. Like, you might as well do it. And every single one of them was able to cancel surgery. So I've yet to see, I mean, is it possible that something could get stuck? Yeah, but I just haven't seen that before.
Is this gallbladder flush published somewhere? Or can you just go through the details of the steps right now?
Yeah, I think I wrote about it in my first book, 5 Steps to Restoring Health Protocol. And then I've got a video in my at-home program on it too in the drainage module. But the steps essentially are that you want to not eat fat for the day, and then you want to stop eating around like 2 o'clock. And then you're going to be drinking some Epsom salt, I think around 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And what that's going to do is that's going to cause you diarrhea. Like that's going to clear your intestines out and it's going to move stuff quick. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take some olive oil and grapefruit, preferably like a fresh grapefruit that you actually squeeze and get the juice out, and you mix it together. And some people think that's the worst part. I honestly think the Epsom salt is the worst part. It's such a horrible tasting, just like makes me want to gag. But you drink basically the olive oil and grapefruit and then quickly lay down and like fall asleep. And what happens is when you drink that olive oil, it causes the bile and the gallbladder, if you have a gallbladder sac still, to purge, and a lot of bile because you haven't eaten any fat all day, and this is like a huge amount of fat. Now it's triggering the body to like push it really hard, and the grapefruit really, that citrus helps just kind of add some kick to the whole mix. And then typically you'll have to, get up in the morning and go to the bathroom. And you'll start drinking Epsom salt in the morning as well. This is probably the worst part, is the 2 Epsom salt drinks in the morning time to kind of flush your colon. But what you'll see is you'll go to the bathroom and you'll see a lot of times like little stones and things in the toilet. And I've had some people that are like, well, when you mix, like an acid with like a fat, you're basically creating like little soap balls. And that's all you're seeing when you do the liver gallbladder flush. However, like when you do it and you see all these stones, a lot of times you'll see them that are green, but some people will see them like black, and that always is a sign to me like it's been in there a long time. Like it's pretty significant issue. But as you do it more and more, they like disappear. So if it was just the mixture you were drinking, then you would see them consistently every time you do it. And what'll happen is the more you do it, the less you see. So it's kind of it's more intense. I don't recommend it for everybody, especially somebody that has like adrenal fatigue. It's just, you have to be home for like 24 hours. It's not super comfortable, but if you're like ready to get your gallbladder out, this is definitely something I would, consider at least looking into to try to prevent from having to get that thing out.
So that is the hit it with a hammer kind of approach to doing a pretty strong detox to get the stones out. And then what would you recommend they do to then repair the liver and restore a healthy bile, healthy gallbladder?
Well, you always want good food. Food is like the foundation. So you want good nutrients. You can't out-supplement a bad diet. So food is always important to make sure that you're eating clean and eating healthy. Beyond that, then we can look at the supplements as what can we do to actually help support the liver. So like we have a formula called kidney and liver detox that helps to support the liver and bile duct. There's, a lot of supplement companies out there have kidney formulas and gallbladder bile duct type formulas. So anything in that arena is going to be really helpful. You can also eat foods that have more like bitters in them, like bitter herbs. There's certain types of like bitter lettuces and things, like dandelion leaves and some other things that the bitterness will actually trigger the bile to release and create movement. The goal is you really want to make sure that the liver has movement and things are, moving so that it doesn't get backed up. As soon as the bile gets backed up, then the body stops dumping the toxins into the liver, and it starts actually shooting into the bloodstream, and that's when people's health really decline. So you want to really focus with improving bile flow, making sure that the liver makes new bile, binding up that old bile, and so that you start getting less viscous, if you will, less stagnant bile and more flowing, and that's going to promote health tremendously.
Awesome. I love it. So we've talked about phase 0. You talked a little bit about your phase 1. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, or other supplements you'd like to talk about for phase 1, or did we fully cover it?
No, I feel like it was pretty good. Phase 1 is, if you're looking at expectations, like, okay, I'm going to start phase 1. Should I notice anything? You might not. Some people do, though. As soon as you start moving the, liver bile duct, you might, start having some skin itching because maybe there's parasites inside the liver bile duct. We know liver flukes and giardia and strongyloides, which is a tough bugger. We know roundworms will actually crawl up into the bile duct system. So when you actually create movement there, you can disrupt their happy home that they've created, where they lower the body temperature, that they create more stagnation and less movement, more inflammation, and that's kind of what they favor. So when we actually start supporting the movement, you sometimes can notice like, whoa, like I feel like maybe got a little allergies all of a sudden, like I'm sensitive to some foods, or, like my skin's kind of itchy. And that's okay. Like we're moving things, but it shows you that there's either chemicals or there's pathogens, right? There's either toxins or there's pathogens or both that are inside there that's what you're reacting to. It's not necessarily like reacting to the product as much as you're creating movement where there hasn't been movement. Now, whatever's in there, the body's feeling.
Absolutely. Very interesting. How long should someone do phase 0 and phase 1? So basically supporting the drainage systems, starting a very gentle detox in a more supportive way of all of the organs, getting ready for a parasite cleanse. How long should they do that?
It depends on the person. So most people are going to be able to actually jump right into phase 1, and they're not going to need the phase 0. They can add the phase 0 in at any time and really get that mitochondrial energy boost or lift. But most people are going to be able to jump right into phase 1, and I would say do that for 30 days, then you can add in phase 2. It's always important to continue to support the drainage pathways as you're supporting the immune system and going after pathogens, supporting detoxification, really pulling the chemicals out, that you support the drainage. So it's not just like, oh, I'm supporting the drainage for 30 days and I'm completely done. It's like, no, you want to support, like you want to open it up and get it moving, but you want to support it along the journey. And it's really in the support where you're going to minimize so many different symptoms. You're going to feel so much better. Now, if you're that person that's like, well, I want to know this stuff works, well, then jump right in. But I can't tell you how many testimonials, and you hear this, you'll see this on the Facebook group, parasitegroup.com that you're mentioning. You'll see people are like, yeah, I just jumped right in and it was doing great. And then like 2 weeks in, it was too much. And I got to go back to phase 1 that I never did. It's like, Dr. Watts and I have spent countless hours, days, like in this protocol of really thinking everything as we can through like what makes the most sense for the masses in getting somebody well. And that's kind of where we came to this whole, protocol guide.
I love it. Now, I really recommend following your program, following the way you guys set it out. Because like I said, my one experience of forgetting to take my 2 carbon supplements from you, and then I really felt it. I also didn't do phase 1. I didn't do anything, other than I did some coffee enemas, but I was like, oh, I'm healthy. I do stuff. I eat healthy. I can just jump right in. So I think I probably would have had a even better experience if I was patient enough to take the time to do phase 0 and phase 1 before I jumped into the parasite cleanse. But you're right. Some people need to feel something in order to know it's working. Because like we talked about in our previous interview in episode 210, should people get tested for parasites? And, that's the question. It's like, well, how do I know if I have a parasite and should I get tested? And what I find really interesting is that so many tests can be negative. It's unlikely you get a false positive, but it's very likely you can get you get a false negative. And so you could have parasites, but they can hide. And has anything changed since then? Are there any parasite tests that are like just foolproof, or is it best just to do a cleanse annually because there's statistically more likely you have a parasite than you don't?
Yeah, I would just assume you have parasites. My good friend, Dr. Todd Watts, he's like, if you can find a pulse on your body, then you have parasites. That's his test, which is rather sarcastic, but it's like, well, it's really true. There was research done last year where they took 10 species of parasites that they'd never sequenced the DNA before, and they looked at it, and they found over 1 million new genes. This is in the last, year-ish. And it's like, okay, well, how many different species of parasites are out there, and how many of them have we actually looked at, let alone are we able to look at in a testing, a facility or a testing kit? And we're just not anywhere close. There's some people in the industry that have, some decent ones, but it's like, by the time you spend money for that, you might as well just cleanse and see what comes out of you,
Right.
Because even if you got to know, I would still say you still need to go down this route And even if you got a yes, it's like, well, you still need to go down this route. So I just don't think the testing, I love data, don't get me wrong, as long as the data is accurate. And at this point, I just don't feel like data is super accurate for parasites. I don't feel like it's super accurate for Lyme and co-infections. I don't feel like it's super accurate for mold, and I don't feel like it's super accurate for toxins or heavy metals either.
I heard that there's two co-infections that are really common with Lyme that are not, there's no tests there's no labs in the United States that test for it, and you have to send your blood off to Germany. Like, I'm like, really? It seems when you get into this world that we're so limited to, the local technology. Like, we have to go global and to find these rare tests that a lot of people with Lyme end up having. So my question around your parasite cleanse, your whole system, because you have a beautiful system that looks at the body as a whole, can it kill all parasites? Like, for example, we have a listener who's in our Facebook group, the Learn Trail Facebook group, and she and her daughter have blood flukes. Does your cleanse only address parasites in the colon, or can it help get rid of parasites through the whole body?
No, I mean, the products are Mimosa pudica seed is really our, most well-known product. That's what Dr. Todd Watts actually brought to the world, was Mimosa pudica seed. He's really the first, 5 years ago to bring it, not only to the States, but also to the world. So he definitely gets the credit for that. But when I was doing Mimosa pudica seed just by itself, I was having like tons of like scabby boogers inside my nose. My nose was like hardening. And I had some other symptoms, and it was like, wow, this really feels like, I know it works great for the GI tract, but it really feels like it has some systemic effects to it. And especially like the Formula One, the different Ayurvedic herbs, neem, clove, adanga, holorina, triphala, these things, they're going to work great inside the GI, but they're also going to get absorbed and work systemically. Now, are these products going to clear out every single parasite that's ever existed? Like, no way. I mean, there's a ton of different, anti-parasitics and things that are out there, and we, know that we're not all inclusive. Like, we know we don't have every single product available, for every condition. But as we continue to really break ground in different research and figure out things that aren't available on the market, that's where we're coming out with stuff. So we're just, we don't want to just slap a label on something that already exists. If there's a need for it, we want to really figure out how we can help that person with it through something that doesn't exist. So you can use other anti-parasitics with our phase 2 immune support system. There's no limitation necessarily with that. But we hope to have more stuff in the future come out too. We've got a lot of stuff in the research side of things and kind of in the lab right now, and so we're just going to see what comes out of that, and we'd like to do a lot of testing before we release anything as well too.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you're very humble because your products are amazing. I was at Dr. Diedrich Klinghart's clinic, and they recommend, out of all, the parasite cleanses, they're right on board with your cleanse. And I thought that was so cool. That's such a confirmation for me. What parasites do you know are affected? What parasites does your protocol kill that you know of?
Well, I mean, really, we're in it for immune support. I mean, that's like what we can essentially say about it. And we know it works really good for supporting the immune system and the GI tract, and that's kind of what we got to stick to. Now, within our parasitgroup.com or the Facebook group, there's some other discussions and things that are kind of good to get into. But we definitely love the Sophia Health Institute. Dr. Schaffner and Dr. Klinghardt, they're just great. I mean, it's just big hearts. I mean, they've helped this functional medicine world so much. So yeah, definitely big shout out to them.
So legally, you can't talk about the which parasites that your cleanse kills. Is that it?
Well, we really don't. We haven't gotten to the point where it's like, yes, we know this species and this one, right? I mean, we see all kinds of pictures, all kinds of stuff that comes out of people. And I mean, with that laugh, you've probably seen things too. I mean, I've had things texted to me where my phone dings and it's like right before we're eating dinner, and I make the mistake of going to look at my phone, and I'm like, okay, yep, this is why I put my phone away. I don't check it. So I mean, we've seen all kinds of stuff, but I feel like we just don't know enough about what are the actual parasites out there and how do we delineate between the different species, and like, I mean, the testing right now just stinks. So it's like for us to accurately
Mm.
say like, oh, we know this and this, it does it for sure. I don't know if we'll ever be to that point, but we're definitely not right now.
I do agree. Go to the Facebook group and check out what other people are saying, what other, bugs are coming out of them. But the proof is in the pudding, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So once you've completed the program, how long should someone stay on phase 2? That's the phase that we're, like you said, supporting the immune system and the whole digestive tract, but also the phase where people see parasites die and come out of their bodies dead. That was a concern my husband had. He's like, do they come out alive? I'm like, no. No. So when we're killing parasites, both the eggs and the other stuff, I don't want to gross people out too much, but it's a good thing. Don't like it's better to get it out of you than keep it in you. So with phase 2, how long should they stay on it?
Yeah, so real quick, why it's necessary is the big toxicity epidemic has created an environment to attract the body to having parasites. The idea that we're going to be sterile from parasites is not reality. It's the same issue we went through in that line of thinking with bacteria that, oh, we'll just kill all the bugs and then we're not going to have infection anymore, right? Antibacterial soap, antibiotics, etc. And we realized, no, it's not really the case. So the goal is we're not eliminating every single critter in the body. We're not eliminating every single parasite. The idea that I look at it, Ashley, is that through this toxicity epidemic, it's creating an environment that's attracted these parasites there because parasites will actually absorb toxins. They'll absorb heavy metals. So if you have heavy metal toxins, you're creating an environment that's like, come on, parasites, help me absorb these heavy metals. The problem is you're going to have the parasite and you're going to have the heavy metal still inside of you. Now you got, two things instead of just one thing. So when you're doing like a parasite type cleanse, I'd like to recommend at least 90 days off the bat. People with chronic illness, though, and health issues could be much longer. So, I mean, it could be 6 months, it could be even longer than that. But the initial cleanse, if you will, persistent and consistent is the name of the game. So at least 90 days. And then you can think about, okay, well, just over a full moon, then I'm going to, push it with Mimosa pudica or Formula One for 5 days. So 2 days before the full moon, on the full moon, 2 days after the full moon. Or you could go kind of the old school farmer way where they used to cleanse the animals and family members every spring and fall, where you just take a month and it's like every 6 months you kind of do a cleanse. So the goal is, do a longer initial cleanse off the bat, and then you can kind of modify the maintenance, if you will, along the path. But if you just did an initial and stopped and didn't do any maintenance, then you're going to have to do more initials later on because it's going to start building back up. So the lower that we can keep those levels and really support the immune system, the less likely you are to, get it built up and get it out of disarray again.
Very cool. Has anything changed with phase 2 since you were on the episode 210, or do you want to just run through what phase 2 is? What supplements are in it?
Yeah, phase 2 is the Mimosa pudica seed. It is the Formula One, and then it is the BioActive Carbon Biotox. Now, the Biotox could be in that phase 0 or that, energy booster pack, if you will. But the Mimosa pudica seed, Formula One, those get all the attention. Because you oftentimes will, not every time, but a lot of times people will see things and it's like, well, what percent do you actually see stuff come out of you? Well, when you look at from the parasite category itself, 30% of parasites are visible by the naked eye. So the vast majority are actually not visible by the naked eye. So even if you don't see anything, it doesn't mean like it's not working. But obviously when I had, from, as I talked about in episode 210, I had to pull some worms out of my rear end that were dead. Like when that happened, I was like, okay, if I have this, who else does, right? A relatively healthy guy, like this is a major epidemic, major issue. And then I opened my eyes up to it and realized, wow, this is insane how many people are really dealing with this. And so that's really where we've been working to create solutions for people.
I love it. That's so cool. Awesome. So you've got this amazing, protocol that is, I feel like it's very easy to use, and all the instructions are on the site, and the links to that are going to be on the show notes of the podcast today at learntourhealth.com. I really like how you address everything systemically, especially with the carbon. How did you find your awesome scientist? Like, how did you, in this world, were you guys friends, or how did you find him?
That was all Dr. Todd Watts. So it's a funny story. What we think we want or need, and then the paths that life ends up throwing at us, or we start walking down. So I was speaking in a seminar and just talking about Lyme disease and hormones, and this guy started asking me questions at the end about pathways, and I'm like, okay, either this guy. And it was a lot of questions. I'm like, either this guy's a jerk or he's really smart and wants to know the answer. And so after I got done talking, we ended up talking, and it was actually Dr. Todd Watts, and I'm like, oh no, this guy's like really nice. He's just really smart. He's just looking for answers. And so we went out to dinner with some mutual friends, but I didn't know him at the time. He started showing me pictures on his phone, and I'm like, what is that? He's like, oh, that's from Mimosa pudica seed. I'm like, I want some of that. And that's where my experience sparked from. And then we became friends and, just colleagues, and chatted often. And I actually tried to talk him out, because he's like, I want to, do a supplement company and just really create things that work. And I'm like, that's great, man, but I don't know if I would do it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, red tape, FDA, and I actually tried to talk him out of it. And then luckily he didn't listen to that. And then we were at another conference, and my brother looked over. He's like, why don't you partner with Todd and come out with some better stuff than that's out on the market, for immune support and that category. And I'm like, that's a great idea. And Todd's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm like, okay. So and that's kind of where it happened. And he had known Jeff, our scientist, for a while. And Jeff just loves him because he's like the only practitioner that he can talk to that understands like the pathways and the biochemistry side. So they just hit it off and have been friends. And so it's like everything came together. And it wasn't planned out, which was really weird because, again, I was like trying to talk him out of it, but
glad you didn't.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't listen to that at least. So
well, what I love is that you discovered that these supplements, you created these supplements, and you found that it really helps people with Lyme disease and people with chronic illnesses, because what you described in our first interview is that when the environment is sick, so when the environment is toxic in the body, it creates the perfect environment for these co-infections to come in. So if someone has long-term health issues, that we need to go back and look at how's the body detoxing, how's the elimination pathways working. Let's support the body in eliminating these toxins. And we are living in the most toxic environment that humans have ever lived in. We have, I believe it was every year, 30,000 new chemicals we're exposed to, or something. It's just something crazy. I heard someone else say that there's a 200-pound like barrel per person of chemicals that are dumped into our environment every day, or something like that. It was just, don't quote me off the top of my head, but I'm just remembering like the visual of how much chemicals are in our air, our soil, our water, our food, our clothing, even simple as things as like touching a receipt. When you pick up a receipt, you're getting bisphenol A, leaching into your body, and these obesogens and endocrine disrupting chemicals. Drinking a bottle of water with thin plastic, you're getting these microplastics in our body. And so, you go out to eat at a restaurant, you're getting the flakes of aluminum or nonstick Teflon in your food. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's kind of scary, the toxic world we're living in. And so no wonder we need to take different measures than our grandparents needed to take to stay healthy. That's one thing. The next thing that I thought was really interesting is that you brought up in our last interview that, you know, everyone used to, before the modern age of medicine, everyone used to do deworming, especially if you lived on a farm. You know, you gave the herbs to the animals and the humans took it too. We just knew to do an annual cleanse. So I thought that was really interesting to remember that there's things that we have forgotten in the last 3 generations that have kept us healthy for thousands of years, and especially looking back and seeing what is in herbal medicine that has been used for 5,000 years. I love that you guys bring things like Mimosa pudica in. I'd like to know, though, what's the difference between me going and buying some Mimosa pudica in bulk, you know, from India, and taking your Mimosa pudica? What's the difference in quality?
Well, our Mimosa pudica is the seed form. So there's other forms out there. There's the bark. There's the whole plant. What we found is it's the seed where the benefit really happens. So, and it's fat soluble. It's really good at grabbing onto things, really sticky. It's not the traditional type of binder though, where you can actually take other herbs with it. Or if you're taking like an old school clay or charcoal, you typically don't want to take anything with it because that'll just bind onto it. So it's not the typical kind of binder, but Mimosa pudica seed is a great gut grabber, gut scrubber, and it's really the seed portion. So that's the key to look for is the seed. There's whole plant and there's like the bark that are out there as well too, but we've just found the seed being the best.
But yours is organic, and I know that you make sure the quality's there. I'm always concerned when people go, well, I could just get this herb or get this seed online. I could just buy it, you know, from India or something, and you don't know the quality. I mean, what kind of testing do you guys do to ensure, first of all, I know all your supplements are organic, and I know you go through extensive testing to make sure of the purity, that there's no trace heavy metals, there's no pesticides. And that what you're actually giving us is what you say you're giving us. Because even there's so many supplements out there that they lie, and they don't. What they say is on the bottle is not in the bottle. So, can you tell us a little bit about the quality of your supplements?
Yeah, I mean, that's really our main thing, that's really what our scientist, Jeff, appreciates. He's like, in an interview a few weeks ago, that was one of the comments he said. He's like, they was telling the public, he's like, look, Dr. J and Dr. Todd, they've never asked me can we make this cheaper? Like they only want things that work. And so that's really kind of our motto is, I mean, we do third-party testing on all the products just to make sure the purity is there. The Mimosa pudica seed is an organic ingredient. And then we also have a special way that we actually, if you will, grind it down as well too, that is really effective. So there's many things to it, but I mean, we know we can't, be all things to everybody, but the things that we come out with, we just want to be able to make changes in people's lives and really come out with the best stuff.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, you mentioned an interview. Is this on your podcast?
You'll be able to find it on the parasitegroup.com and the Facebook, in the group. It was a Facebook Live that we did. We actually use a Zoom now on that group, but you can find the link in there. And don't quote me on the date, but I feel like it might be a little bit older, but it was like in November of 2018. And we had our scientists on that live Q&A. So you can actually see him. I couldn't get their camera working right away, but we were able to get that figured out. And so you can see Dr. Watts and Dr. Griswold are our scientists on there and hear right from the horse's mouth as well too. So it's really cool.
Very cool. I'm just remembering you talked about back in phase 1, you talked about the drainage of the brain, the glymphatic. Do these supplements, does the carbon supplements pass the blood-brain barrier?
Yeah. The small chain carbons do. They get into the cells and they cross the blood-brain barrier as well too. So that's part of the, I guess, brilliance of it, And
so I know you sell us, is it 3 different carbon supplements?
Yeah, right now we have three kind of straight up binder bioactive carbons. We've got bioactive carbon foundation, we've got bioactive carbon metchem, and we've got bioactive carbon biotox.
And the bioactive carbon foundation is the one that they would want to take if they want to do the detox of the brain. So if we have heavy metals, if we're worried that we have heavy metals in our brain, especially children like with autism, or children who are on the spectrum, and we're thinking that they might have had some issues with detoxing the heavy metals from vaccines, for example, would the bioactive carbon foundation be the one to take to that goes in, passes the blood-brain barrier, and helps to remove those?
Yeah, so the heavy metal detox support, we're going to be the bioactive carbon metchem.
Okay.
Is the main one that does that, but a third of the foundation product is the metchem. So they're both going to have the heavy metal detox support in them, but the metchem is like straight up, in that, and then the foundation is a little bit more broad, and it's got a third of the metchem in it, so it's got that effect as well too, just not to the same degree.
Okay, got it. So the metchem is the one you take if you want to detox heavy metals, especially in the brain, because that's really cool. The foundation is just general mopping up everything because it's a third of long chain, medium chain, and short chain, so it's a third of each. Then what was the third carbon supplement that you have?
Biotox, and that one is the mold, ammonia, fungus, candida, and that one's good. That one's phase 0 or phase 2, if you will.
Got it. Is it totally safe to take all the supplements you've mentioned at the same time while going through a parasite or while going through the 90-day parasite cleanse? Can someone take all 3 carbon supplements, or is it not needed?
Nope, you can all the carbons can be taken together. They can be taken with or without food, which makes it really easy. They can be taken with or without other supplements as well. And that's kind of the difference. The old school carbon charcoals, they always have to be taken by themselves. So they can all be taken together. The thing you want to keep away, though, is Mimosa pudica seed. You want to keep an hour away from the main binder bioactive carbons. And that it's not that it's going to bind, the mimosa is not going to bind on to the bioactive carbons, but the bioactive carbons will make the Mimosa pudica seed just a little less effective.
Got it. Okay. And is there anything else that you'd like to say to wrap up today's interview, going through all of your different protocols? Is there any information that we have left out?
I feel like this is a pretty awesome interview. So
nice. Okay, very cool. Now I just want to let listeners know, if they go to learntruehealth.com/cleanse, they see all the supplements there and on your website. And I love what you've done with your website in the last year. There's a lot more information, including an entire protocol breakdown of how much to take, when to take it. And then they can also go to the Facebook group to also get, more detailed, get into it. I really like, if you like to hear from other people, read success stories, and also just get ask questions of people that are taking your supplements, jump in the Facebook group. And what was the link to that again?
Parasitegroup.com.
Perfect. Excellent. And now you have a podcast. Let's let the listeners know about it. How can they find your podcast?
Easiest place, you can just type my name, Dr. J. Davidson, into iTunes. Otherwise, just on my main website, drjdavidson.com is probably the best place to go.
Terrific. And I was recently interviewed on your website, so listeners can definitely look for that. I was excited to be on your show, and I'm excited that you came back on mine. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. It's been such a pleasure having you here. And definitely anytime you have more information to share, new stuff comes to light, and new supplements that you come out with, I definitely want to have you back on the show.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Ashley.
Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition or IIN and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, and the Learn True Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people, because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author. You can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, mention my name, get the best deal. Give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people.